Our fourth game this month is Tuesday's trip to Bristol City. They recorded their first league win of the year at the weekend. They beat Middlesbrough 2-1. Alfie, I'm going to come to you first. Bristol City, I mean, Carl Walker-Peters scored that worldie, which was enough to give us all 3 points back in November. It wasn't a classic. I don't know what I'm expecting from Tuesday, but I suspect it's going to be a similar game.
That feels like such a long time ago, doesn't it, actually, when you think about it? On that night, they had chances. They sort of powered through the defence a couple of times, sort of similar to how Huddersfield did in the away game back in November as well, but they just couldn't score anything. I think Tommy Conway must have missed 2 golden opportunities that night, and he's a good forward, he's a good striker, someone who I tipped to play Premier League at some point. So I think they maybe got away with that a little bit. They've, like I say, the results haven't been unbelievable this month, but I think everybody is now behind the new manager, Liam Manning. Was that his first or one of his first games when he came to St Mary's?
Yeah.
He hadn't lost it. Have they drawn a game? Because he came in from Oxford, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I think they'd drawn on the weekend before.
But I think now, obviously at the time, it was all about Nigel Pearson leaving and sort of some anti-board sentiment. But actually, Liam Manning has got on playing decent football. The only thing he needs to do is just score more goals. I think people may have watched the Leeds game because that was on Sky when we were in Rotherham, I think it was, and they produced absolutely nothing. Ashton Gate there, Leeds won 1-0, and City just didn't look threatening at all. So they'll be trying to improve on that. They'll probably, if depending on Saints' team, they might see a way to sort of pound through them. But I'm not expecting 8 goals again. That's for sure. I think Saints might edge it by 1 or 2. But yeah, I think there'll be some tired legs on City because they played the FA Cup replay with Nottingham Forest last week as well. That went to extra time penalties. They drew both games with Forest, and obviously, such a good result for them. So yeah, then they're a good team, but they're just that middling area where they're not going to push for the playoffs, and they're nowhere near going down. So it's a team that you have to beat if you want to be in the top 2.
It all sounds very Tuesday night, doesn't it? Glenn, my note said that it was Bazunu that kind of kept us in the game in the first half back in November. It was, not a huge amount to write home about.
I mean, the note I wrote about that game was it's one of those that you'll think back on and just go, a win is a win, because we weren't particularly good, and Bristol City were, they set up with pretty basic tactics, which was 10 behind the ball and try and spring a break, which they managed to do on a few occasions, and Bazunu kept us in it. So I think back then we were still messing with our formation a little bit. I noticed that Charlie Alcaraz played as a sort of false 9 in that, and then he got pushed out to the wing when Adams came on and things like that. So
Shea Charles start that one, did he? I think he might be Charles and Manning. I think they came back in for that one, but yeah, definitely I remember Alcaraz up front.
Yeah, and also interestingly, bearing in mind the game we've just had, it was another game where I think Russell Martin made a couple of subs in the second half, and he brought Smallbone and Aribo on together. So it's like an engine room with no engine, with both of those playing, because neither of them can run. So so there was a few problems caused then, but again we sort of got away with it, and I managed to close out a 1-0 win thanks to that very good goal by Carl Walker-Peters. But so I think this is quite a difficult game. I don't think obviously it's as difficult as West Brom coming up on the Friday. I just hope Russell Martin gets the balance right in the midfield, and we give him a decent game. I be interested in Bristol City's attitude, because they might have seen Huddersfield and how they played against us, and maybe think that's the blueprint. Let's go for that. Maybe they don't have the players to play like that. I think we're going to get 1 of 2 performances from teams against us now, in that they're going to, the lower teams, if you like, they're going to absolutely go for it and try and press us all over the park, or they're just going to sit in the 10 at the back and hope for the best. So it'd be interesting to see what tactics Bristol City have got, but we should obviously be too good for them, and with the players we've got to come in either to the starting lineup or to come off the bench, we should have too much for them.
We touched on it a bit earlier, Steve, but what are your thoughts ahead of this one? I think they were on a 6-game winless championship run going into the weekend. Alfie mentioned the FA Cup. They had the win against, it was West Ham, wasn't it, I think? And then obviously that game against Forest, taking them to a replay. It seems like the performances might have been there. Perhaps they're just not getting the results. So it could be an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean they've had 3 games against Premier League opposition, and 4 games against Premier League opposition, and not lost any of them. So yeah, I mean they're clearly able to raise their game. Whether I don't really know what their ambitions are going to be like for this game. It may be that, I mean, as you say, if maybe they don't have the players to play in the same way that Huddersfield did yesterday. But I mean, if they don't, that's a little bit of a damning indictment that you can't match Huddersfield Town's performance in a Championship game. When you've got the resources that, I mean, Bristol City got far more resource and capability than Huddersfield have. But yeah, it might just be a case that they kind of play similar way to how they did against Leeds, but hoping to kind of be a little bit more clinical when on the rare occasion they do manage to kind of venture forward. Because I mean, they basically had one shot on target on that Friday night, and other than that, barely laid a glove on Leeds, and it was all very easy. I mean, if we can have more of the same, then I mean, I'd bite your arm off for a 1-0 win as comfortable as that was. That's for sure.
You've had a pretty easy run recently, Alfie, I think, with the predictions for your starting 11, because we've been pretty sort of certain on the team and what might happen. This could be the first time on Tuesday night where we see a couple of surprises, maybe, and you might have to think a bit harder for that one on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think Russell said yesterday that there'll be a change or two for sure. So there definitely will be. I think obviously Flynn Downs will come out if he's injured. Hopefully Stewie Armstrong stays in, because if he does, that makes the midfield choice a little bit easier in my opinion. And then the back four is not going to change. It's just the front three. So in my opinion, it will probably be Adams out and David Brooks in, Adam Armstrong through the middle, and then possibly Fraser for a dozy. I think Adam Armstrong will keep his place. So I would predict there'll be maybe 1 or 2, 3 at most changes, and I think there'll be Downs, Che Adams, and maybe Fraser.
Do you think the same, Glenn? Same front three for you?
Pretty much. I think Fraser will stay in, but I agree that David Brooks will start ahead of Adams, and and someone will start instead of Flynn Downs. I hope it's Shay Charles, but it'll probably be Joe Rothwell.
Okay, let's do some score predictions. Again, if you're watching along live, you can stick your score predictions. Needless to say, I don't think anybody predicted that the weekend's game was going to finish 5-3. So we'll kind of gloss over that one. We're all fairly optimistic, though. I think goals scored, we weren't far off. It was just those conceded. Steve, a prediction for Tuesday night, please.
I think a mirror of the home game, and another 1-0 win.
Okay, Alfie.
Yeah, I already alluded to what I think it was going to be in my sort of like prologue. And I'm also going for a 1-0 win, just about edge it.
All right, not many goals then, Glenn. Do you agree? Do you think it's going to be quite a tight affair?
I do, but just to be different, I'll go for 2-0.